So welcome, Douglas. Douglas was supposed to join us last month, but he had some things he needed to attend to, and he wasn't quite ready to take the plunge with us. And now he's here, and I'm pretty excited. We got a pretty good show lined up, I think. We're going to talk about the profit centers of heritage poultry, and we're just going to jump right in here, folks. As you come in, catch up and plug in. We'll make a replay of this first half of our session available. It'll be publicly available. We do encourage you to ask questions. You can ask questions at any time, but we're going to circle back and get questions at the very end, the second half of our program tonight. I see Karen Johnson there in Raleigh. Hi, Karen. Kristen Payne in Texas, Red Rangers in Orange Cross is what she's currently raising. We got Eric from Northeast Florida. So we're all across the country. I love that. Linda Hayes, Delaware's, and she's from Washington. Chris Hardenbrook from Hawaii. Hi, Chris. Nice of you to join us. So, as I mentioned, I'm joined here by Douglas Hayes. Douglas is a Buckeye breeder from Calistoga, California, and he runs a small regenerative agricultural sanctuary he uses to keep the genetic agricultural heritage from being harmed. And he wants to pass on the old-time agricultural know-how along with current innovative national agricultural practices to others like us, like you, like the people listening. So we're thankful to have Douglas sharing his knowledge here today. We talked a little bit on the phone about probably 2 months ago, and he mentioned something in passing, and I wrote that down, and I circled back with him, and I said, hey, Douglas, how about we talk about that on one of these live streams? And he graciously agreed. So I'm going to bring Douglas on now and stop talking, give him a chance to maybe just give him a 1 or 2 minute introduction there, that anything I might have missed that he feels is important, and then we're going to jump into the show.
So I'm on now live. Here we go. Hello, everyone. So what goes on here is it's a small farm. I'm only I've got 42 acres, but it's the actual area that is under production is about just a little less than 3 acres. The focus is on heritage breed chicken, the Buckeye, a market garden, fruits, obviously vegetables, and rare herbs. Everything is old time or really good genetics from the past. The oldest rootstock I have are some plums that come from France. They came over here in the 1790s. So it's all old time rootstocks. Everything is open pollinated. We don't use any chemicals of any kind. So that's the overview of that side of it. And then the chickens I've been involved with for, I don't know, since the 1970s. Raised many different breeds, and still feel like I'm a neophyte. There's a lot to learn. So what we're going to talk about today is about these profit centers. So I'm going to just jump in with hatching eggs. So and a little bit about breeding here at the same time. So if you're a breeder, you're in a completely different world than somebody who's just out for production. Breeding at this stage with these Buckeyes, I've been at it for about 13, 14 years. I got my original stock from, most of it from the Livestock Conservancy. It came either from Jeanette Behringer or what's that guy's name? I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Don Schreider, and some from Graymore in Columbia, South Carolina. And so I've been hatching a lot, mercilessly on the cull side. Most of the time you keep about 10% of your eggs, 10% of what you hatch, and I'm keeping someplace close to 4%. That means if I hatch 100 birds, I'm going to keep 4. That way you really get genetic improvement. And when I first got the first birds, they were in terrible condition. So they are now like the real deal. I mean, they're what a Buckeye is supposed to be. So I just want to show some pictures here for just a second. That right there is the APA style. I got to get this right. There we go. The top birds are, I can't see everything because here I'm the first time I've ever done this. Okay, there we go. So those top birds are a male and female. What a Buckeye is supposed to look. That's idealized. They are those are not pictures. Those are paintings. In this, where I got these out of is called the APA Standard of Perfection. It's the grading standard that's used by all judges to judge poultry. Is in the poultry standard. The poultry standard is kind of like, quote, the Bible of chickendom. So if you go to like page 52 of the standard, it will tell you what males and females are supposed to look like and how they're all graded. So the Livestock Conservancy in Pittsburgh, North Carolina, they also have a grading standard. So, and then you get into the whole thing about grading chickens yourself and what you know, because there's things, they don't talk about aggression, but I've specifically selected for birds that are non-aggressive human beings. But I do have a couple of roosters that will kick ass and take names when it comes to going after hawks, but they will not touch humans, which I really like. You don't want to have an aggressive bird. So when we get back in here to these profit centers, that's kind of an overview about grading and about what I'm looking at as far as having a really good bird. So you got a male, you got a female, or a bunch of females. You've got some eggs, you want to sell them. So it depends on the breed. Some breeds are more rare than others. When I first started this, there were 800 Buckeyes left. Back in the 1920s, in the early 1920s, there were 2 or 3 million of these birds. They were mostly in the Midwest. Then it got whittled down, and that's because the Cornish cross. That's because they take a lot longer to grow out. We're talking about broiler stage at 16 to 18 weeks. That's radically different than a standard Cornish cross broiler that it's in a CAFO and it's 7 weeks or something like that. There are SM57s and P6Ns and Cobbs and Rosses and all the rest of them. They're much, the time to grow out is much less. So the hatching eggs, I charge all depending on who it is. If it's a young person that's in 4-H, I charge them $4 a piece. But if there's somebody that just wants to do it, it's $8 a piece. So the pricing is gauged on how good what the parent stock is. So they all get candled. You don't want any blood spots in them. No defects on the shell. You sell them by the dozen, or as many as they want. So then the next place is for a profit center or day-old chicks. So that means that they're hatched, they have no split leg, they have no obvious defects, and they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and we charge $5 a copy for those. So if you wait, what actually is called a day-old chick is usually about 3 days old. So I've already, what are normally called day-old chicks, they've already had their beaks dunked. They're not shipped. If I'm going to ship them, they never get their beaks dipped. I put an apple wedge in the package and go with 25. Overnight shipping. That's the only way to go. Don't ship ever on a Friday. Don't ship on anywhere from Wednesday to Friday. Ship Monday or Tuesday. Have your hatch come out, so it's coming out on a Sunday or a Monday, and that you're going to be in the post office on Tuesday, because sometimes they mess up, and you don't get it next day. So anyway, as far as guarantees and things like that, you can't guarantee hatching eggs. What I do is, if it's somebody local, I go back to them and say, okay, I'll give you some more eggs, a few that didn't hatch. Your hatch rates ought to be someplace in the neighborhood of about 85%, something like that. Now, okay, so that's that. Now the third item here are 8-week-old, 90% graded breeding stock. So by the time a chicken is about 8 weeks, you can pretty well gauge everything about them. And so there's a whole procedure for that. And I won't go through everything, but you want to make sure that their heads are right, their wattles are right, their combs are right, their eyes are right. You work down their body. You want to make sure that their heart girth is big, that their backs are flat, that their rib cage is about one line and it's not got any breaks in the rib cage, that the vent end is wide and the bones are kind of narrow and out of the way. So at that stage of the game, the cost for breeding stock is about $30 a chicken. It's just, I mean, and this is California prices, and in general, it doesn't matter, but that's about that's what I charge. The next thing is, as the chickens grow, at 9 to 11 weeks. Now with the Buckeye, it's actually about 11, right at 10 or 11 weeks. They're going to be someplace there, because they're small to start. They're going to be in the neighborhood of live weight at about 2 pounds, and they're going to dress out somewhere about 20 ounces or something like that. We charge $16.95 for one of them, whatever that weight is. And at 11 weeks, they're going to have plenty of flavor. Chicken does not get its flavor until the 9th week of life. Chicken up to nine weeks can have some flavor for sure, but it doesn't get more chickeny, really deep flavor until about 11 weeks or 9 weeks. And by 11 weeks, it's got a lot of flavor to it, and chicken will actually keep getting flavor on it. The bulk of its flavor is by 22 weeks. It'll have 90% of it by 16 to 18 weeks. And obviously, one of these heritage breed chickens is a whole other ball game as far as flavor than a Cornish cross. They're just about the same thing. So at 14 weeks old, we're talking about fryer size. We're talking about neighborhood of about 2.5 pounds, 2 3/4 pounds, something like that. They're going to be a legit, I mean, something that you can feed a couple of people with. Fryers were at about $7.50 a pound. So now let's go up here to 16 to 18-week-old broilers. Most of mine are in the 17 to 18 weeks. That's when we harvest all the ones that we don't want. That's when we do our mature cull. We sell all the birds that we do not want for breeding, like 80 or 90% at that time. And I have all commercial equipment, and we do it all by hand. I thank every bird individually before we slaughter them. We thank them. The night before, if at some point we want to go into slaughtering, we can talk about that. But I have a killing cones, a scalder, a feathering, a defeathering, tumbler, and evisceration table. We air chill. Much better way to go than dunking them in water. So anyway, that's that. And we're at $8 a pound for broilers. Now, capon's a different ballgame than roasters, but they're both at about 22 weeks. Capon is a fixed male, and they act very much like hens. The meat's delicious. These and also roasters are at $8.50, $9 a pound, and capon I'm still playing with. I think I can get more for it because not everybody's got it anymore. So now let's go to the next one, which is stewing hens and coq au vin. So at 52 weeks, that's when we do the final grading for all the birds. That's where we have bona fide males and females that we're going to use for breeding. If they don't make it there, then we sell them as stewing hens or coq au vin. Coq au vin is the French. It's made with a male, and it includes the comb and the wattles that is in the recipe for it. And it is a browned chicken that has then been stewed in lots of good stuff, including a little bit of anything from wine and cognac and Madeira, all depending on what you like it, what flavor you like. So now the next thing that we have here is graded 1-year-old breeding stock. Oh, I didn't go over the cost of that stewing hens and that. By that time, I got to just say this. By that time, a cock is going to be in for a Buckeye is going to be in a rooster is going to be someplace in the neighborhood of around 6 or 6.5 pounds, might even be 7. The stewing hen will be in the neighborhood of 6.5 or 7 pounds, and we're at about $8 a pound for those also. Now the grading stock, going back to the breeding stock. So breeding stock, if I have a really good rooster, they're $150 a piece. There's an 11-to-1 ratio between one rooster and how many hens that he can actually handle. And it varies by breed, but for Buckeyes, it's 11-to-1. And a really good hen would be anywhere from $50 to $75 a piece. And then the last point here is we sell eggs to the local market, and so if they're not going to be good enough for breeding, and I want to sell eggs, we're selling eggs right now wholesale here in California, here in the Napa Valley. It is $10 a dozen. I know it's hard to understand, but that's what it is here. And they're selling retail at $15 a dozen. I know that's California. I know. I just but it is the way it is here. And when I deliver eggs, which are right now we're only delivering anywhere from 8 to 16 dozen a week, in 3 days they're gone. So that I forgot. That's another profit center I didn't even say about. Okay, so you got another one. Oh, we got 11. So then, if I want to sell hens or pullets, I usually do that at about $30 a copy. So that gets through the list.